Welcome back to the cryptowrld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is starting to reject from this important area of resistance, but in the short term, this bullish divergence is technically still active. So I'll be talking about what that means for the price of Bitcoin moving forward in just a moment, alongside Solana, which is once again testing this important area of support, while the price of Chainlink is now starting to reject from this critical area of resistance. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, starting off on the 4-day Bitcoin price chart, and right now the super trend indicator is still sitting in the red, so not a lot has happened on this chart over the last 1 day. So getting straight into this weekly Bitcoin chart, and technically speaking, the weekly Bitcoin MACD is still looking more bearish than it is bullish, but like I've been saying over the last half a week, give or take, we're potentially getting close towards a low point in the histogram within the MACD indicator. And so that usually marks the maximum amount of bearish momentum within the bearish movement, not always the end of the bearish movement. For example, we saw basically a low point in the histogram in the MACD right around here back in around July 2024, and that was at around a local low, but we didn't necessarily flip massively bullish again for at least another couple of months, 1 to 2 months here. And if we're looking at the time before that, where we previously saw bearish crossover playing out in the weekly Bitcoin MACD, when we reached that low point, that was pretty much the low point for the price of Bitcoin, but we did start a gradual recovery over the next few weeks for almost a month before we finally started to flip much more bullish again roughly a month later. And so that's what this potential signal means in the MACD indicator. But of course, like I've been saying recently here on the channel, we still need to really wait for another couple of weeks to actually confirm a low point in the histogram in the MACD indicator. But I'm just letting you know in advance that this could be a likely signal that will confirm in the coming weeks. But if we're taking a look at this weekly Bitcoin price chart, we still have a massive bearish divergence that we cannot ignore, which has been active for the last couple of months, as I've been saying basically every day over the last couple of months. So of course, this means that we should not necessarily expect any significant momentum towards the upside really anytime soon. And once again, I've been saying that for months now on the channel. And so of course, we can see some short-term bullish price action, like short-term bullish reliefs, bounces from support, bounces from oversold signals and things like that on the smaller time frames. Just don't necessarily expect a high momentum movement towards the upside like what we saw back here or back here, for example, at least anytime soon. But if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously we still have support at around 82,500, and right now we're possibly coming in for another test of that support level, so expect support at around 82 to 83k. But if we break back below that level of support, in that case the next support to watch out for is sitting at close to 76,000 based on this retracement level right here. And below that level of support on this 3-day time frame, I'll be paying attention to this significant area of support based on previous significant resistance flipping into new support, sitting in between around 70,000 to 74,000. So in the lower 70k area as major support, obviously if we first break below these levels. And taking another look at that 3-day Bitcoin price chart, we also have significant support very close to 70,000 and just under 70,000 at around 68 to 69,000, give or take, based on the volume profile indicator showing a lot of traded volume in that price range. And as for resistance, we've just now seen pretty much a perfect rejection, at least so far, from this resistance sitting in between around 86,000 to 88,000. And obviously I've been talking about this area of resistance for quite some time just recently here on the channel, telling you that we're likely going to find resistance, likely going to struggle and possibly reject from within this area in between 86 to 88,000 once again. And at least so far, as of recording this video, that is exactly what is happening. And this short-term resistance is mainly based on this previous resistance, this previous high in the price based on the 3-day candle closes, and also a small spike in traded volume in the volume profile indicator showing some resistance at close to 87,000. But if we can finally see a confirmed breakout above this area and actually ideally hold this as as support, but at least confirming candle closes on these slightly larger time frames above around 88,000. In that situation, we'll likely see a continued relief above 90,000, most likely into the lower 90k area, around 91 to 92k, and then around there I'd expect significant resistance. But for now, that is the current situation in the short term. There's a lot of people interested in selling Bitcoin and taking profits for Bitcoin around that 87k, give or take, that 87k level. And if we're taking a look at this daily Bitcoin price chart, obviously this bullish divergence is still technically active, as I've been saying basically every day over the last 1 week approximately, since all the way back down here. And so what this is telling us is that we're likely going to see just a slight bullish relief here in the short term, or at the very least just some choppy sideways price action. So basically a break or a relief from all of the bearish price action here, but not necessarily a reversal out of all of this bearish price action. And so what I mean by that is, for example, a likely scenario, not guaranteed, but something that we need to consider is possibly a little bit more of a relief here in the short term, and then potentially a continuation of more of this bearish trend right here at some point later on. That is a possibility that we need to at least consider. But for now, this bullish divergence is technically still active because we've not confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence, which means we're still likely going to see either a slight bullish relief or choppy sideways price action, at least for the coming days here. But when we combine the fact that we have a bullish divergence actively playing out on the daily Bitcoin price chart, combined with the price running into this resistance in between 86 to 88,000, obviously this means the price will likely reach some sort of stalemate just in the short term. Basically, as we approach this resistance, expect continued struggle, continued resistance around this area. And so that could possibly cause a bit of choppy sideways price action in the short term as the price tries to play out the bullish relief, and then of course runs into that resistance, sees little rejections like that, continues to play out the bullish divergence, sees another rejection, things like that. That is a likely scenario, at least in the coming days. But remember, as I said earlier, if we can finally confirm a breakout above around 88,000, then of course the bullish divergence can continue properly playing out up towards that low 90k area, which is the next significant resistance. And if you want to actually trade these moves in the price of Bitcoin or any other crypto, personally, I'm starting to take more of my crypto trades over on 2bit, so I'll make sure to leave a link to 2bit below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link, by the way, you can get some massive trading bonuses, like for example, a brand new Mercedes-Benz or $50,000 in trading rewards, which you can actually get onto your account, but only if you use that link. But if you're not one of these larger traders here, you can still claim some decent bonuses using the link below this video, like for example, a $30 sign-up bonus and also a 20% deposit rebate up to a max of 200 USDT onto your 2bit account if you use that link. And on top of all of that, if you use the link below this video to 2bit, you're automatically upgraded to VIP level 1 trading fees, which basically means you get a massive discount on trading fees. And so if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link below this video. And also, in case you're wondering, 2bit is a no KYC exchange, which means you can access it from basically any country in the world without needing any KYC. But as always, check your local regulations when it comes to trading crypto. And for whatever reason, if you don't want 2bit as an exchange, there's also BTNX as another exchange out there that I also use myself. So I'll also make sure to leave a link to BTNX below this video. And if you use that link, by the way, to BTNX, you can get an exclusive 10% discount on all trading fees on BTNX forever. That is a lifetime discount that lasts on your BTNX account, but that is only available if you use that link. And also, in case you're wondering, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange as well. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, and right now we still have a lot of liquidity in between around 71,000 to 74,000, and also a decent amount of liquidity at close to 100,000. And so honestly, over the last couple of days here, not a lot has changed on this Bitcoin liquidation heat map. So with that being said, getting straight into Ethereum, looking at the weekly Ethereum price chart right now, technically speaking, the larger price structure is still currently bearish. From the moment we broke below this multi-year line of support on the weekly time frame, that was a massive bearish signal, a massive change in this price structure on the larger time frames. But if we're taking a look at this 3-day Ethereum price chart, we're still finding a lot of support, and obviously we've bounced from this level of support at that 78.6% Fibonacci level, which is sitting at around 1870 to 1880 approximately. And so basically in the high 1.8k area, just below 1.9k, we still have a lot of support around there. If we actually come back for a retest, continue to expect support support around there. But if we finally actually confirm a break below around 1870, for example, with significant candle closes to the downside, and especially if we flip that into new resistance and fail to get back above that level, in that situation, the next significant support level to the downside is sitting at just above 1.5k. And as for resistance, the next significant resistance to watch out for to the upside is sitting in between around 2.1k to 2.2k. I would expect significant resistance around there, but if we can finally see a confirmed breakout with multiple candle closes, but at least a candle close on these larger time frames above around 2.2k and actually holding that as support, in that situation, at least in the shorter term for the coming days and weeks, that would be very bullish for Ethereum, and I would expect a continued relief at least up towards 2,500, possibly 2.8k, but only if we first confirm a breakout above 2.1 to 2.2k, which in the shorter term, in the meantime, will likely act as significant resistance. And as I always say, Ethereum, along with a lot of the major altcoins out there, will likely follow similar price action to what Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin has a slight pullback or a major dump or a bit of a bullish relief in the short term, either way, expect something similar for Ethereum and a lot of the major altcoins. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at Solana on the weekly time frame, right now Solana is still testing this significant area of support sitting in between 120 to 130. And for almost a month now, for the last few weeks, we have been finding significant support in between 120 to 130 as expected. Obviously, I've been talking about this major area of support since all the way back up here, since much higher prices. And so right now, prices are still exactly playing out as I've been talking about for basically a month now. But if we ultimately cannot hold on to this area of support, if we ultimately break this area and actually see, for example, a weekly candle close below $120, and especially if we flip that into new resistance, in that situation, the next major price target to the downside would be sitting at around $90 if we first break below this area. And if we're taking a look at the daily time frame right now, this bullish divergence is technically still active for Solana, which means we should be expecting either just some choppy sideways price action or maybe a slight bullish relief in the shorter term as the most likely outcomes for a bullish divergence. And obviously, I've been saying that basically every day for around a week now, and so far over the last 1 week, that's exactly what has been playing out as expected. And considering we've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to invalidate the bullish divergence here on the daily Solana chart, technically we should continue to expect basically the bullish divergence to play out at least in the coming days. But with that being said, taking a look at the price of XRP on the 3-day time frame, technically this much larger bearish divergence is still active for XRP on this 3-day chart, which means we should not necessarily expect significant momentum towards the upside at least anytime soon. And obviously I've been saying that for months now on the channel, and so far this has been perfectly playing out as I've been saying it will. But of course, as I've also been saying here on the channel, during all of this right here, we can see some short-term bullish price action here and there. That's perfectly normal to see, especially bounces from support and oversold signals and things like that on slightly smaller time frames. So as of right now, that's what we're currently seeing and what we've seen over the last 1 week, give or take. But just don't necessarily expect a massive high momentum movement towards the upside like what we saw near the end of 2024, for example. And if we're taking a look at the shorter term, looking at the 8-hour time frame, at least for now, the price of XRP is currently trading within a bit of a sideways price range. First of all, we have this area of support sitting in between around $2.24 to $2.30, and we also have more support in between $1.95 to $2.05, and significant resistance in between around $2.65 to $2.80, and more resistance at $3. And we can see here in the somewhat shorter term, the RSI did get very close to overbought territories over the last 1 to 2 days, which means basically we were starting to run out of room towards the upside, at least in the short term, and we were due to see some sort of reset sometime soon here in the RSI, which obviously was potentially one of the causes as to why we saw a bit of a pullback just over the last 1 day in the price of XRP. But now that we have seen a slight reset in the RSI, this has given us a little bit more room towards the upside in the RSI, which also translates over towards the price action, technically gives us a little bit more room towards the upside. But obviously we still have a lot of resistance as we approach close to 260, 265. And at least for now, we're kind of lacking momentum to either direction because we're basically within a bit of a sideways price range, chopping around between support levels and resistance levels. And overall, once again, as I said earlier, and as I've been saying for months, we should not necessarily expect significant bullish momentum. So we're not necessarily seeing high momentum movement towards the upside, as we can see, just short-term bullish moves. But considering the fact that in the short term, the price structure is obviously looking a little bit more bullish over the last 1 to 2 weeks here, considering we flipped previous resistance into new support, obviously that's counteracting any bearish momentum. So overall, it's basically balancing out to look somewhat neutral in a bit of a sideways price range, at least for now. And remember to pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing. If Bitcoin continues to play out a bit of a relief in the short term, especially if Bitcoin breaks out above key levels of resistance, expect something similar for XRP, and vice versa. If Bitcoin just plays out a major rejection, for example, in a dump, expect something similar for XRP. And with that being said, if we're taking a look at the price of Chainlink on the daily time frame, technically speaking, this bullish divergence is still active for the price of Chainlink, but we have run into significant resistance that we cannot ignore, mainly sitting in between around 1490 to 1550, which was the previous golden pocket area of support, now acting as new resistance at very close to $15. And we can see that at least so far, as of recording this video, that's pretty much exactly where the price of Chainlink actually rejected from, as expected. So like I've been saying here on the channel since before this rejection, expect a lot of resistance, a lot of struggle around this area on the price chart. But if we can finally see a confirmed breakout above ideally 1550 and actually holding that with multiple candle closes above that level and ideally flipping it into new support, then in that situation, the next significant resistance towards the upside is sitting at around 1750. And so with the price of Chainlink technically still playing out this bullish divergence on the daily time frame at the same time as running into major resistance, it's a very similar situation for Chainlink as what I said earlier for Bitcoin, playing out this bullish divergence and also running into major resistance, which will mean we're most likely going to play out a bit of choppy sideways price action in the coming days, with the price still trying to play out the bullish divergence but struggling around resistance and playing out basically sideways price action just like that. And technically speaking, the larger trend for Chainlink on the daily time frame is technically still bearish. We've not yet fully confirmed any bullish trend reversal signals like a breakout above key resistance or a massive higher low put in place in the price action, at least as of right now. So like I've been saying for months now on the channel, since much higher prices, the larger trend is technically still bearish despite seeing some short-term bounces here and there. But remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to claim those massive bonuses that are only available using those links. And if you want to actually know how you can profit from crypto no matter what the price is doing, even if the price is just chopping around sideways or if it's bearish or bullish, either way, you can profit watching these videos popping up right here on your screen, because the video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.